I think people just don't know that this actually exists. Google didn't just send out a email blast saying, hey, there's all this valuable performance information that you can gain through these custom scripts for PMax. We had to find it. We had to go out of our way to actually hunt for something like this, just because it provides us with so much insight and information.
What's up, everybody, and welcome to Growth Mentors, the podcast where we share snackable growth hacks, strategies, and best practices in how to drive maximum marketing impact and grow your bottom line. I'm your host, Matt LeBlanc, and today we will be talking about how to unlock Google's black box, Performance Max, with Eric Herzog. Eric is an acquisition manager at Jump 450. So if you are a beginner just dipping your toe into testing on PMax, or someone who is more advanced and looking for strategies to optimize your campaigns, Eric will be sharing not only how to approach PMax and best practices, but also very excited to share the game-changing strategy that our team at Jump has discovered to extract new insights and reveals levers to pull to scale. What do you say, Eric? Does that pretty much sum it up?
Yeah, that sounds about right. Thanks for having me, Matt. Really looking forward to it.
So the show's called Growth Mentors, right? Have you ever had a mentor?
I have. I've had a couple mentors in my life.
I don't want to go on and on about this, but can you break down a couple of important qualities in a good mentor?
Yeah, I think it's having an ability to teach others is huge, and not have it be so much of a teaching, here's how to do it, this is the way to go about things. I think it's being able to teach from experience, which in my opinion has a lot more weight than just somebody who knows a topic well. If somebody's been through it before, I think that is really crucial for being able to be a good mentor. I think having a sense of humor is also key. Both of my main mentors they're just funny guys. And I think that also really helps too, just because when you're younger and you're learning the ropes and you're going through things, it could seem like nothing's really working out for you. And I think being able to just laugh about that with your mentor is huge.
Why don't you tell us a little bit about your background? You're an acquisition manager at Jump. How did you kind of get here?
I've been working in the digital marketing agency world for about 8 years now. I have worked brand side as well, done sales for tech companies, advertising platforms, things like that. And I've always gravitated back towards paid media. So about 4 years ago, really got super involved with Google Ads specifically. I had a lot of background in all different verticals of digital marketing, content, SEO, whatever it may be, things like that. And so really found a passion for paid media, specifically on the Google side of things. Over the past couple of years, I've pretty much pioneered a new strategy that we do here at Jump, where we just launched directly into Performance Max for new brands. So Performance Max, which we'll get into, super excited to talk through that with you and our listeners, but PMax is a new campaign type. And so a lot of people are kind of scared of it, which is totally understandable. It requires pretty significant investment levels. But what I've been able to do for our clients, which has been huge, is launch directly into PMax, use some of the tools that we have in our toolbox, which we'll talk through, to understand exactly what PMax is doing. From there, you do get valuable insights from PMax if you know where to look. So we take those valuable insights, understand what PMax is doing, where is it serving, and then leverage those insights to launch directly on those other placements. So whether that be YouTube, display, hopefully we're already on search, but maybe it gives us some more insight into how we want to proceed on search. And from there, we can just continue to use PMax as that tool for helping us identify insights that we can leverage directly on those channels specifically. YouTube being the biggest one, in my opinion. I think there's a lot that can be done on YouTube, but the smart way and new approach that I've taken is going into PMax first and then using what you can gain from there to launch into video or YouTube, for our listeners who didn't know that video is YouTube on Google Ads.
All right, Eric, really eager to jump into the PMax stuff. Romance me a little bit first. Tell me a little bit about yourself. Why? Tell me just a little bit of context about your background here, Eric. You are a surf enthusiast. I know that in the time that I've worked with you, you have lived in, I think, Costa Rica, Mexico, San Diego, and Lake Tahoe.
Miami.
Miami.
Yep. And then we can add, we'll add Miami to that, and then also Maui, Hawaii.
Wow. Okay. So really just looking for the best waves.
Yep, exactly.
So just diving into PMax, can you give us like some context for PMax? What is it?
Yeah.
What is it used for? Where are we seeing these ads, placements, all that good stuff?
So PMax is one of Google's newest advertising channels. The cool thing about PMax, it is Google's really their first approach into a more AI automated driven campaign type. So what that means is it will serve across the entire Google ecosystem. So whether that be search ads, shopping ads, display, Gmail, Google Maps, video, all of those channels, Performance Max can serve across them. How Google determines that is based on available ad placements. So that's where that AI automated driven machine learning really comes into play. So it sees which ad placements are available, will place your ads there. There are a lot of things that you need to have in place for PMax to run successfully, which I know we'll get into. But from a high level, I think PMax is such a great ad type because it does really fill in those gaps. So for clients that we are running, we're running on search directly, we're running on YouTube directly, we're running on display directly. PMax is such a great supplementary campaign type because if we don't have a search ad that fills an available placement or a YouTube ad that doesn't fill an available placement, PMax can fill that advertising gap really and just help us drive incremental performance for all of our clients.
Right. So as you're talking about it showing up in all these different places, when I see Google Maps, I'm like, wow, this is really everywhere that there is screen space on Google. They're, tucking in little ads here and there. They call it the pinnacle of automation. It feels like take modular pieces of ads, headlines, images, videos, and then you sort of feed them into PMax and it distributes them how it wishes out to all of these different placements and platforms, correct?
Exactly. That is exactly right. So we load in all of our ad copy components, our images, which come in multiple different aspect ratios that we need to leverage, videos, site links, logos. I mean, the list goes on in terms of just creative elements that you can put into PMax. And then you're right, Google does mix and match those components to fit available ad placements, which I think is also why a lot of people are a little hesitant to get into PMax because you're really, in a sense, letting go of the reins and letting Google's AI and automation help drive performance with you. So you do have a little bit less control. That's also, I think, what makes it so exciting is you just need to understand how best to use what you're given and just really lean into it because AI is not going anywhere. Automated campaign types aren't going anywhere. So really just have to figure out how you can leverage them best to help grow your business.
Yeah, I was going to say this kind of just leads us into why this is important for us to be talking about, right? Because I think the automation is exciting, but it's also sort of scary. You don't have a lot of insight. You don't have a lot of control. You're sort of feeding it in, spending all this money, feeling like you're maybe crossing your fingers and going like, hoping for the best. Exactly. So it feels risky, I think, to people, right? It's scary to do that. But one of the things that we're really going to be getting into today is how people can actually extract insights from Performance Max. There is a lot more visibility than people are aware of. And there are actually a lot more levers that you can be pulling. And this is sort of broadly unknown.
Yeah, definitely. And it has been more of a kind of I don't want to say trial and error, but I love testing new things across all Google ad campaign types, and PMax has been no different. So it really has been testing every which way, shape, and form to just figure out how PMax works and how we can leverage it best for our clients.
Why don't we just talk a little bit about how one can approach PMax?
So I think what you really need to understand is, like any other Google ad campaign type, is what you're trying to achieve with running Performance Max. Right. So the way I like to look at it, you work backwards almost. You think about what your end goal is. And then there's a lot of different things that you can put in place to try and achieve that goal. It also comes down to, and this may be simple and straightforward, but just understanding your business type, right? So when we really boil it down, we've got e-commerce and then we've got lead generation types of businesses. So knowing that, and then that determines what your advertising goals are. Both of those things are crucial for understanding how you approach PMax, because, if you're an e-commerce brand, you're trying to drive purchases, you're trying to drive revenue, you're trying to drive an improvement in return on ad spend and just improve efficiency while growing. So you're trying to optimize towards purchases. What that means is you can have Google or you can have PMax set up as strictly a smart shopping campaign. You can use it as like a fully baked out PMax setup. And when I say fully baked out, that's using all of your headline, all of your ad copy components, all of your imagery, all of your videos, and letting Google's automation find those purchases, whether it be on shopping placements, whether it's going to be on search, video, whatever it may be. You can launch with that approach as well. If you're on the lead gen side of things, just because you're not trying to generate purchases doesn't mean that you can't leverage PMax effectively. So there are a few, not necessarily limitations, but just things that you can't put in place if you're trying to drive leads. Like, you're not going to have a shopping feed. You're not going to be optimizing towards purchases, but you can still use PMax to try and find you new potential leads across the entire Google ecosystem. And then from there, just really starting with your goal, working backwards, and then based on the type of business you have, the types of assets you have, the things that you're trying to achieve, there is a PMax setup that you can put in place that will help you drive your ultimate, business objectives.
I feel like starting with your goal or objective, this really is not dissimilar from really any campaign or any business, right? When you say that you can turn off shopping, or you can choose like these different platforms, you're saying you do have those capabilities when you're launching a campaign. You can sort of say where you want it to go, because otherwise the placements are not up to you, correct? Correct.
There are things that you can do to try and influence where PMax will place your ads, but you don't have the ability to select, we want to serve on display and YouTube and search. You don't really have that flexibility, but things that you can do to influence that. For example, with shopping, one of our big clients right now, we just restructured all of their PMax campaigns and we're running with a shopping only tactic. So what that means is we have their product feed attached. We have the campaigns organized by performance and profitability, but we only have the product feed as the assets that are running. So that means that we're serving 99% on shopping placements. There is a tiny bit of search that gets pulled in there, but it is 99% on shopping. So that's one way that we've been able to kind of hack the system here, figure out how we can run strictly shopping through Performance Max.
So you're saying that situation is not common for people, though, correct? Because a lot of people do not know how to pull that lever. And so what is the common experience then in that scenario?
Yeah, so a lot of people will launch Performance Max and they just build out, they're called asset groups. So traditionally within Google Ads, the campaign structure goes campaign, ad groups are below that, and then you got your keywords, ads, etc. Performance Max is campaign asset group. And so your asset group is where you put in all of your copy, all of your images, your videos. That's where we attach the specific products that we want to advertise if we have a product feed set up. So what that looks like for the average individual is they'll create their Performance Max campaign. They'll create their asset group. Within that asset group, Google will make you put in headlines, descriptions, imagery that has to fit within 3 different aspect ratios. So you have to do 1:1s, 4:5s, and 1.91:1. You can't launch an asset group without those. You don't need to include a video, but we highly recommend you include a video, because if you don't have one in there, Google will make one for you. It's using like Times New Roman font and stuff, and they're not very pretty. You got to include your final URL, so where you're trying to drive traffic. You can add extensions, site links, call outs, promotion extensions, things like that. So for that average individual, they're filling out an entire one of these asset groups, hitting launch, and really just hoping for the best. So what we've been able to do is we actually figured out that if you have one of those asset groups fully built out, you can create another asset group that is just shopping feed placements, you pause the asset group that has everything running in it, and you let just the shopping only one run. You have to do that in that order though. You have to have a built out asset group, and then you can have your shopping only asset group, and then you pause it, and then you just run strictly on shopping. So that's how we've hacked PMax to be a smart shopping tactic.
Before we get into kind of all of these hacks and scripts that you guys have been able to unlock, just talking through some of the necessary components that you're going to need for success when you start in PMax.
The big one being, outside of having the infrastructure in place to run a successful business online and digitally, conversion tracking is a huge piece that really needs to be completely accurate to get the most out of Performance Max. This campaign type leverages AI and automation in the best way to really inform the campaign of what you're trying to achieve is to make sure that the data and the signals that you're putting into that campaign are completely accurate. That way you'll have your campaign's going to know what you're trying to achieve and will be able to leverage accurate data, because we've also seen situations where if your conversion tracking isn't accurate, Performance Max does not perform well. So I think that's the biggest thing that people and advertisers really need to have in place before launching Performance Max. So you need to make sure that you have your ad copy. So you can have up to 15 headlines. Those are all 30 characters total. You get long headlines, which are 90 characters total. And then you get 5 long headlines, and then you get 5 descriptions. Descriptions, one has to be 60 characters, and then the other 4 can be 90 characters. You also get images. So you get a total of 20 different images that you can put into an asset group. Those being a combination of 1x1s, 4x5s, and 1.91x1, so landscape photos. You have to have at least one size of each of those images, or else Google just won't let you save your asset groups. You also need videos. So like I mentioned earlier, if you do not include a video, Google will create one for you. We've seen some pretty unattractive, we'll call it, videos that have been generated by Google for some luxury brands that we've worked with. That's a huge miss, I think, just because it does not accurately represent what the brand is. But let's dig into videos for just a second. So with videos, since it is serving across YouTube and YouTube partners, that means the video has to live on YouTube. So what you do to actually get these videos, you upload your video content to your YouTube channel. Once that's ready to go, it'll generate a link for you. And then you simply just put that link in and the video will populate. So you can't actually just upload an MP4 file or like a video file into PMax. It does have to come from YouTube, which is one thing that I don't think a lot of people understand.
I was doing some digging myself, and so for the videos, I think like 15 to 30 seconds is kind of recommended length. Yeah. And one thing too about that, which we'll get into, is creative testing, right? So one size does not fit all when it comes to digital advertising. Right. So being able to test 15-second videos, 30-second videos, we have clients that long form content performs really well for them. So it really is just being able to test through the different creative types and understanding what performs best. Right. And then also in terms of aspect ratios on the videos, you can do 16:9 or 9:16. So horizontal or vertical placements.
Correct. Yep.
We are going to dig into sort of recommendations and best practices in terms of like creative assets. I want to talk about traffic, like where we're driving traffic to.
So that's a key component to Performance Max. So I'm really glad you brought that up. So you can put in your final URL. However, buried within the settings of PMax, there is a setting called URL expansion. What that means is that let's say we're just driving to a PDP for a specific product. If you have that setting checked within PMax, it can actually drive users to any relevant URL on your site. That can become an issue because, let's say, for example, it is that PDP and that's our highest converting PDP. We want to make sure that all of our traffic is going there. If we have that URL setting in place, it can be driving traffic to blogs, to contact pages, to pages that are not built to actually convert, which can be detrimental to performance. we actually ran into a situation where for one of our clients that we scaled PMax to like 30K a day recently, where their top performing landing pages were these specific advertorials that they built out, which absolutely crushed it. But we had that URL expansion setting in place, and we were seeing much lower conversion rates than what those advertorials had historically seen. We turned it off just because we wanted to test it. So we turned that off and immediately saw a boost in conversion rate, which just led to overall increases in performance and ultimately us getting up to 30K a day on PMax. So that was a really notable learning experience for us, and excited to share that little tidbit of info with our listeners.
So are you saying that what we want to do is go in and turn the expansion setting off? Yeah,
because then that way you can have more control over the landing pages that you're driving users to through PMax, which, at least in my experience, landing page optimization and testing is a pretty crucial step to just generating stronger performance. So knowing where you're driving traffic to and what levels of traffic are going to that landing page is a necessary piece to succeeding within PMax.
Absolutely. So Eric, I feel like all of these are great tips in terms of like how we can have a little bit more control over our PMax campaigns. Let's talk about how to monitor and optimize in PMax. I feel like
Yes.
we can really sort of get into what you and the team have kind of unlocked here in terms of extracting insights and pulling levers.
Yeah, no, I think this is going to be the most valuable part for our listeners as well, just because this is really, like you mentioned, how we've been able to unlock PMax, understand what it's doing, and ultimately help us scale PMax and make it a pretty vital channel for all of our clients across the Google ecosystem. So like we mentioned a couple times here, it is the pinnacle of automation. It is also that black box of insights. So within the Google Ad platform, you don't really get a ton of insight into what Performance Max is doing. You get your general metrics, impressions, clicks, spend, conversions, etc., but we don't know where those impressions are serving. And when we say throughout this portion, when we talk about where it's serving or placements or channels, that really just means which Google networks that the ads are serving on. So that's going to be search, display, video, Gmail, Google Maps. Just want to preface that because we will be getting into a little bit more technical aspects of placements and where things are spending. So Google does not tell you in platform how much spend is going to search versus shopping versus display, etc. So we have actually found a way to understand exactly what Performance Max is doing. So we can see how much spend is going to which placements, which creative assets are driving performance, which search terms are triggering ads, which products or asset groups are performing well. And this also helps us understand which areas need to be optimized and how we've been able to unlock performance through Performance Max. So how we do this is all through custom scripts that we have found that we implement into the platform that run daily. So these scripts are extremely insightful. They've been so valuable in not only helping us understand what PMax is doing for clients that are running Performance Max, but it's also been a way that we've been able to help sell clients that aren't running PMax on the opportunity and possibilities that Performance Max presents for them.
So great. Why don't you tell us a little bit more about these scripts? What does a script look like?
These scripts are custom JavaScript that get put into the scripts portion of tools and settings within the Google Ad platform. So it is all of this custom code that runs within the platform, and the output is presented into a Google Sheet. So when you're setting these up, one tip is to just make sure that the Google Sheet is available to edit by all. That way, the Google Ad platform can actually provide the output of that script in the sheet. So what we look at on these sheets, it gives you a fully comprehensive view of what Performance Max is doing. So from a high level, it tells you just overall account wise, it lists out all of your campaigns, shows how much spend is going to those different channels, search, shopping, display, YouTube. It also tells you the number of conversions from that channel and the conversion value, which if you're an e-commerce brand will be revenue. If it's lead generation, you might not have conversion value, or you've maybe assigned a value to specific conversion actions. So that's just at a high level. On the account tab, there will be sheets for specific campaigns, so you can see that same breakout for each individual campaign. It also provides the output in just a really fun and easy to read chart. So it gives you pie charts, bar graphs, line charts. It gives you tables that break out all of this. So it really just gives you all the tools to be able to analyze the performance data, slice and dice the performance data to pull actionable insights for clients, and then ultimately know how we want to optimize campaigns. So it doesn't just stop at the channel placements or what the campaigns are doing. It'll also give you the search terms performance. So that is something that's not available in the Google Ad platform. So it can only be pulled through these custom scripts and reports. And so it'll actually show you which search terms are triggering your ads across search. This has been huge for helping to grow non-brand search for clients that run PMax and non-brand search in tandem, because we're able to leverage that search term data from PMax, and we can see that a certain keyword is driving a lot of conversions. That's something that we haven't actually put into our non-brand campaigns. So we can use those search terms to influence what we're doing on non-brand search and just ultimately grow both of those channels simultaneously.
I just wanted to prompt you a little bit, because I think that something you've told me about previously is that you're also able to see how much money is spending per placement.
Yeah. So that all gets presented to you in these scripts.
And just to sort of clarify, these aren't like to gain all of these insights. This isn't just one script that you're putting in. So what's the difference between one script versus another script? How are you choosing which script to kind of enter in?
Yeah, so this one that I'm talking about is all coming from one script, actually. So we found this script that provides you all of these insights and an output. So it'll be a Google sheet that has about, I think it's like 20, 25 tabs in it that go through all of this, but then it also gives you creative asset performance, video asset performance. It's really insightful what this script provides to you. The other thing too, to answer your question, you can have as many scripts as you'd like running within the Google Ad platform. So we have other scripts running for PMax that give us additional insights around shopping and product performance, for example.
This is obviously super valuable, having these scripts and getting all of these insights. Why is this not the way for everyone? Why is this, such a secret?
Yeah, I think people just don't know that this actually exists. It's something that we've found and really adopted and made it a staple part of our PMax service offering, just because it provides us with so much insight and information. But we had to find it. We had to go out of our way to actually hunt for something like this. So it was never, Google didn't just send out a email blast saying, hey, there's all this valuable performance information that you can gain through these custom scripts for PMax. So we had to go find it. And I just don't think a lot of people know that it's out there.
Why did Google not blast that out to everyone and let them know? Is there something that I'm missing here, that they wouldn't want people to be using these scripts?
I honestly don't have an answer for that. I've got my point of view that I think Google just continues to try to lean into their own AI and automated campaign types as much as possible. So it just puts more control in Google's hands, really, and less in the hands of advertisers.
Can we dive into some of your case studies here? I think you've got a non-shopping client and a shopping client also that we wanted to cite here in terms of how you've used these scripts and how they've sort of helped us optimize campaigns.
Cool. Yeah, let's do it. So let's dive into our non-shopping client first. So one of our major travel industry clients was really hesitant to run PMax just because they didn't know where it would be serving. They're very protective of their brand image. They want to understand what the ads are actually going to look like on all the various placements, but they couldn't do that because they didn't know where it was actually going to be serving. So we were able to show reports from other clients of our ability to see exactly where Performance Max is spending their ad dollars and which placements their ads are appearing on. So that instilled a ton of confidence in our ability to run PMax effectively. So ultimately, through the use of those scripts and just educating the client how we know how to leverage these to truly optimize PMax effectively, we were able to unlock hundreds of thousands of dollars over the past couple months for PMax directly. We found that a large percentage of spend was actually going to display, which was the one channel that was not currently present within the media mix. So that was a huge win because now we have every advertising channel covered through the use of PMax serving directly on display. What we also found, which was really exciting, is that Performance Max drove conversions at a cost per conversion slightly above brand search, but much more efficient than non-brand search. So we've been able to actually reallocate our investment level to put more money into Performance Max just because of the strong level of conversion volume that it drives.
Wow. So just to sort of like really clarify that point with display in particular, because of the scripts and because of the insights that you were able to gather from them, you saw that you were performing better on display, which made you then outside of PMax kind of double down on display to sort of support those efforts. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
What about the shopping client? It was a skincare brand. I think?
Perfect. It is a skincare brand. Yeah. So I think I alluded to this client a little bit earlier in the podcast, but this was really when we first found the scripts and starting implementing them and utilizing them and just really analyzing them. So a little bit of backstory of the client. They kind of have two different business models. So they've got their traditional e-commerce site, but then they also do a subscription model that you can really only do the subscription model through these custom landing pages that they would build. So another nuance to this client is that their subscription take rate was really high when we would drive traffic to those custom landing pages, which meant that we could optimize towards a higher CPA than if we were just driving traffic to the e-commerce site, because most users would only buy the one product. AOVs would be really low. So our CPA would have to be like $10, $15. Whereas if we were driving to those landing pages, we could perform efficiently at around a $90 to $100 CPA. So what does that mean for us and how we use PMax? So we were able to see that Performance Max was actually spending 90% of ad spend on video rather than shopping. So the CEO, we all had some assumptions that since PMax was new and it was mostly kind of a smart shopping upgrade, that the majority of spend was going to shopping. So we were actually able to see that 90% of spend was going to video. Through that, all video traffic was going to these custom landing pages that they build that have really high conversion rates, really high subscription take rates. So we were able to go from, it was a pretty quick scale. So we went from a couple $100s a day all the way up to $30,000 a day on Performance Max. And the whole reason that we were able to get to that level was because of these scripts showing that we were spending 90% of Performance Max ad spend was on video.
Unbelievable. Wow. And so then were you able to, you're also able to tell which videos in particular are performing, yeah?
Yeah. So that's another really impactful piece of these scripts is we can actually do creative testing within PMax because it tells us which video assets are performing, which static assets are performing. And then we could see something like going back to the travel industry client that we just spoke about. We could see that the creative that was performing well was scenic imagery, beaches, coastlines, oceans, whatever, things like that. So we could start implementing those types of static imagery across other channels and just leveraging the PMax creative insights for creative optimizations on channels like Meta, TikTok, Snapchat, programmatic, things like that. And so it's really helped us just see an improvement in performance. Yeah.
Wow. So insights that you weren't even supposed to have from PMax are actually informing the creative that you're running on other platforms.
Exactly.
And you got one more shopping client that you wanted to talk through an experience here?
Yeah. So another really cool thing that we've been able to do with these custom scripts for shopping clients specifically is understanding which asset groups perform the best. So little bit earlier, we talked about, what an asset group is versus just like your traditional ad group. So with these scripts, if you're running Performance Max as a shopping tactic, what that means is that you have products in PMax. They're called listing groups, but you have your products assigned to the specific asset group. You can also have specific landing pages in those asset groups. So the reason I'm giving you a little bit of this backstory is because this is a use case that only works if you're using PMax for shopping. But what you're able to do is understand which types of products are performing better because you can see asset group level performance. So let me give you an example of this. So what we would do is we would launch one asset group with creative that's focused on models. It's like lifestyle imagery or users actually using the product, things like that. So more model, I'm just calling it model focused creative versus creative in the other asset group, which was all product focused imagery. So like close-ups of the packaging, like the product outside, whatever it may be, but just no people. We'll just call it people versus no people. So we were able to use these scripts to understand which type of creative assets perform well just because of the way that we had the campaign set up. And again, we're able to leverage those creative learnings across other channels, where we found that imagery that contained people or models performed a lot better. And so that really helped lead the charge in terms of creative for like channels like native or social, where we led with human first creative. And that has really helped just unlock a lot more scale and performance on non-PMax channels.
Just so I got that correctly, you said that the ones that performed better were the ones with people in them, yeah?
Yeah. It is nice to be able to have those types of split tests going on within PMax just because there's such a significant investment level going there. And we're really able to just help guide strategy for other channels. And I think we thought it was really impactful. The client was really excited about just the results and the insights that we were able to gain there.
Absolutely. So this brings us into the types of creative that we should be running on PMax. We can talk through some sort of recommendations and best practices here. But I think what's really so significant kind of about this piece is that being able to extract these insights from Performance Max, you can actually do kind of more traditional creative testing the way that we do on other platforms. Yeah,
exactly. But you wouldn't be able to do that if we didn't have these custom scripts implemented into the account. So it's really helped us do what we do best in terms of just unlocking scale through creative testing, but through a completely automated campaign type.
Absolutely. So in terms of creative, like we mentioned, we're talking about images, copy, videos, logos. All of these are sort of modular pieces that we're entering into PMax in all of these different aspect ratios. What are some of the specifics when you sort of dive into each one of these different components?
Yeah, so a great place to start is always what's working on other Google channels and what's working on other channels like social, native, things like that. So from a copy perspective, always like to lean into what's working on non-brand search from a messaging perspective, just because we are serving PMax on non-brand search. When we're looking at imagery, a great place to start is what is working on social or native if you're running native. The one, I guess, nuance of images for PMax is it works a lot better if you have no text overlays on your PMax imagery. The reason being is that those images will be served with a headline or a description or a combination of the two. So we don't need to have copy on the image because we'll have copy serving with it. That gives us and creative teams and brands a lot more flexibility to really leverage eye-catching imagery and visuals through PMax rather than having to focus on how the copy looks on an image, for example.
Yeah, it's kind of giving you like a more limited sandbox to play in, right? Because if you're saying, okay, don't add headlines to these images, it's making you really sort of focus on the images themselves. What are we entering here? And am I to understand that because we're entering the logos separately as well, it's really just raw images that you're putting in.
Exactly.
Can you give us a good place to start when looking for videos to enter into Performance Max?
Great place to start is what's getting a lot of engagement organically on your YouTube channel. I think that's a great place to start. You can repurpose that content. You can cut it up. You can make it more ad focused, but that's a great head start. Another thing is to look at any video creative that's working well across other channels. So whether that be TikTok, because TikTok videos can perform well on YouTube Shorts, since it's a very similar video type. Maybe you have long form content that converts well on your website. You can chop that up and repurpose it. So I think it is really leaning into what you have available that's worked in the past, launch, and then leverage, these insights and scripts that provide insights to understand how to optimize that creative. I think what you don't want to do is spend a ton of time trying to find the perfect creative assets or the perfect video assets. And that just holds up launching. I think the best way to go about it is just take what's worked well other places, launch with it, and then just learn from the data that you gather.
Yeah, I think what's interesting about what you said is what you mentioned first was like pull from your organic YouTube, what is performing here, which sort of to me says that we're trying out different styles, right? So we're trying out styles that feel more native to certain platforms, feel like maybe user-generated content versus another test that might be more polished or brand-focused.
Totally. And I think that's also just how these scripts become even more useful, impactful, is you can set up, maybe we've got an asset group that has UGC content, one that's got polished content, one that's got like a brand-focused video piece. You can see which ones are performing best just by looking at the asset group level performance, and then help guide optimizations and strategy for other channels.
And if you were looking for more creative recommendations in terms of what to test or what is working in digital marketing, we've got an episode dedicated entirely to that, which is called "This is Why Your Ads Don't Convert on Paid Social." So you should go check that out. We will link it at the end of this episode. Eric, anything else that we wanted to touch on in terms of creative to be launching here?
No, I think really just the main thing is just include at least one video into your asset groups, just because that prevents Google from creating that video for you. And you'll at least have a video that is representative of your brand, rather than letting Google's AI create pretty much a slideshow with a really basic font on it. So
you're extremely bullish about this point. Do not let Google make the video for you. Tell us the horror story. What did you see?
It was awful. We had a current client spending, over Black Friday, we spent almost $1 million through PMax. Come to find out that, because we had inherited the campaigns from a previous agency, come to find out there was no videos in there. And the video that we saw was just literally a Google slideshow that had Times New Roman font across the images. It was not pretty and not very representative of a luxury brand that is at that caliber of a company. So that was a pretty key finding.
Just to kind of wrap us up here, this has been so much useful information for us. Can you talk about, I don't know if this is relevant, can you talk about any current trends that we see in Performance Max? Anything notable?
I think the new thing with Performance Max is there's now actually a way that Google has kind of forced you to choose which type of Performance Max campaign you want to run. So that's, I think, the newest thing that we've been able to see is like, if you launch with a shopping feed, you're locked into Performance Max as a shopping campaign. Things like that, where there's kind of like subcategories of Performance Max. They're all just Performance Max within the Google Ad platform when you launch them. But based on how you set them up, that dictates pretty much the style of Performance Max campaign that you have to run. And like I mentioned, you're locked in. So if you launch with a shopping campaign and you realize that you don't want to include your shopping feed or your products anymore, you can pause that out, but you can't update the final URL that you're driving to, for example, because it has to match what's in Merchant Center. So that's something that we ran into as well. There are optimizations you can do, but at the end of the day, we ended up having to just pause that campaign and start a new one, which had hundreds of thousands of dollars worth of data in it. So I think that's one new trend, and just something to really be mindful of is like understanding how you're launching PMax, what kind of PMax it's going to be, and making sure that that's really the one that you want to invest in. The other one too that's come up recently is you have the ability to apply brand exclusion lists. So this is also something we've been doing for our clients where we can apply a brand exclusion list. So we'll apply the client's brand as an exclusion, and that will force PMax to to be more of a non-brand prospecting style tactic, because it'll still pull in some brand terms. That's just PMax for you, but it'll be more focused on trying to drive non-brand new customer acquisition. So I think those are two of the major kind of trends and new things about Performance Max that we're seeing.
Great call outs there. Yeah. What about future? Can you forecast it all? What's coming next?
I think the next one is actually demand gen, which is Google's newest campaign type, which is similar to Performance Max in a sense that it's another AI automated driven campaign type that serves across a variety of Google placements and networks. But it is also Google's real first step towards a mobile first / social optimized campaign type. So super excited to dig into demand gen on one of our future episodes, because I think that's really the future. I think we've got PMax pretty locked in. We know how to use it. We've got a ton of different use cases. Now it's going to be, let's do the exact same thing for demand gen.
Absolutely. Eric, so much good information that you shared with us today. Thank you so much for that. Is there a place that people can go to learn more about this? Maybe any resources that you use on a regular basis that you can sort of turn us on to?
Yeah. So any real publication online that focuses on paid media. So PPC World, SEMrush has some great content out there as well. Listening to Growth Mentors and following us across our social platforms. We have a ton of great, valuable insights that we're sharing on a constant basis. So I think between all of those, you'll be able to find some great, valuable resources and insights, and hopefully some things that you can put in place into your own advertising efforts.
Thank you for that. Yeah, and if you are looking to unlock performance in Performance Max, you can get in touch with Jump 450 specifically in the link below in the description. You can reach out to us for the specific scripts that Eric's been talking about, or even jump onto a discovery call about working with our team. You could maybe have Eric on your campaign specifically. Eric, thank you so much for spending the time with us today. This is Eric Herzog, Acquisition Manager at Jump 450.
Thanks, Matt.
If you are interested in getting access to any of the PMax scripts that we talked about today, or hyperscaling through digital advertising, then get in touch with Jump 450 in the link below in the description. That is www.jump450.com. And do not forget to subscribe to Growth Mentors Podcast for more weekly episodes. We'll see you next time.